Sometimes questions, they flood my mind.
So, what got you started in music?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I think the first thing that got me into it was just my family always listened to music. I was always around it, even though my parents are not musicians. Yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it. I always felt good when I listened to it, and that was basically probably the initial reason.
Yeah. What I think is interesting is because I took note of you kind of you're kind of under a music alias, right? Because you're kind of doing the Batman thing. You got a day job and you got the music thing, and
Yeah, totally.
I took note in your original emails when you're interested in coming on the show is just make sure you use my stage name, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's I know what it's like to kind of be in both worlds, be artistic on one side and creative, and not. And sometimes you go to work and you can't really, maybe talk about the jokes that you had during the show or whatever, So
Yeah.
plus I always wonder that too. Is I wonder if any of my bosses have downloaded a particular episode and maybe heard a work related joke. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hear it tomorrow, kind of thing.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, totally.
Oh man. So without giving away too many details, I just wanted to hear your opinion of that whole situation.
I look at it as I definitely have a day job, and people ask me all the time, if I made it, sure, I'd absolutely give up my day job, but I guess when I reveal to the public what I actually do, I think a lot of the stuff I'm trying to do with my music in terms of the charity might make sense. I definitely can envision doing even that, my career completely in a charity way only.
Mm-hmm.
But it is tough because I feel like I'm giving music a shot finally, and I think it's a pretty good shot, and I'm dedicating a lot of time to it. It's tough to juggle both, it really is, but it's not something that I don't enjoy because music I don't consider work. I love doing it. I do it at night. I do it anytime I can.
Yeah, it's funny. Or just go. You know how those you can just get random YouTube pop-ups all over the internet now. So
Yeah.
I saw a snippet from an interview with Stan Lee, and he was talking about that. It's if you're doing what you love, the work part of it kind of goes away. I mean, it's still hard work, but it just your body interprets the stress differently. You know what I mean? It's more of a positive experience, so it's you just kind of process it differently. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? It's not that I don't love what I do in my day job, but this is different. This is my passion. And it just completely, there's no stress. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. I just do it. It's a great feeling, actually.
Well, I know you were trying to put your own mark, out there with your own sound and have a unique, style to it and everything. But who are your influences? I guess. Is there anybody that particularly inspires you from a style of music or?
I always tell people in interviews, I'm trying to merge 80s rock with today's modern soft rock and pop music.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I feel like I try to do and what I'm accomplishing. So I have many influences, some from the 80s, like anyone from Michael Jackson to Survivor to Journey to modern music. I mean, I love, Justin Timberlake, Bruno Mars, even some of the songs from Eminem, Pitbull, even some of the female artists out there, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, and I really think I take bits and pieces from everybody to make my own unique sound.
That's pretty interesting. Bridging a gap between popular music from the 80s to popular music to now. That's kind of in a weird way, it's almost not just a time machine, but it's I'm trying to figure out a better way to describe it. If I was going to write a review of it, would be that it's really it's transitional pop culture, It's
Yeah.
I guess it bridges the gap, really. I guess if people are discovering or rediscovering stuff that maybe they didn't grow up with, right? Like 14, 15-year-olds getting into music, they weren't really around for all the 80s, 90s stuff, but maybe they hear somebody like you, and then those things are kind of reinvigorated, and so maybe they kind of discover those other tunes,
Yeah. No, And I think today with Spotify and Pandora and a lot of the internet stuff out there, they are rediscovering some of those 80s bands. And it's kind of crazy to talk to some of the younger people and they're talking about the Beatles and talking about the 80s. And I definitely think that those bands are getting rediscovered in the younger generation. And hopefully I can be a bridge to that.
That's funny you say like Spotify. Like I was checking out, I was listening to Blackfoot, and I was looking at their following on Spotify is probably more than they even sold in records.
Sure.
It's funny. Now, what is? I always like to peer into other people's like creative processes and see if there was, like sometimes with my writing, like sometimes I'll have a story that comes in like a flash, like screenplays even. Like there was a couple screenplays that I worked on that came like in a flash where I just sat down for literally a weekend and then kind of canceled my schedule for a few days afterwards. So I kind of just sat there and got it. And then other things, stories or whatever, I'll agonize over for months or 6 months and not have confidence in. But so how does yours work? Will you have like a song that comes to you in like a flash, or do you struggle through the notes and the chords and like trying to get everything developed?
That's a great question. I've done it every which way imaginable. I guess my strength is definitely lyrics. Lyrics are something that come easy to me, and I've been writing since 4th grade, so I've been writing forever, and I have many, many songs that I've written. So my preferred way is to get the music going, and then I can almost hear the lyrics and the way it should be sung and kind of envision it in my head. But most of the time what ends up happening is I'll just write the lyrics and then put music to it later on. Like anyone else, I can definitely be inspired in anywhere, at the gym, sitting at the park, just staring at the clouds. And I can literally, when I get inspired, I can knock out the entire song in like under a minute. The limitation is how fast I can type on my iPhone, basically. But then other times, I do like most lyricists, leave it, come back to it a week or two later, look at it, play around with it, decide, hey, you know what, that melody's not quite right, or I'm going to change around the rhyming pattern for this one. And, always try to do something different so your material is not all the same in terms of rhyming pattern, in terms of all sorts of things that you kind of vary in your work.
Well, what would be an example of that? What do you think is like a standout in your songs that went through that kind of process?
When I look at the traditional pop and soft rock music out there today, I think a lot of them have, verse 1, chorus 1, verse 2, chorus, then there's a little bridge, then there's a chorus 3 and ending or extra. And when you look at a traditional song, that's kind of a format, but I try to vary it. So sometimes I'll have a third verse, which personally is one of my favorite, after the bridge to have another verse and then a chorus. But sometimes those can get a little too wordy. So it varies. The song I just released actually today is called Why. It's a rap song. So that's very wordy, but it's a rap song. You can get away with more words in a rap song than you can in a traditional song. So I definitely always try to vary a bunch of stuff in my song, because I think some people get stuck on writing only radio hits or writing only soft rock hits or punk rock or anything. And I think I really try to vary the music. I try to vary my singing style. I try to vary the style that I've written in, because I think it's important so people don't get bored of me.
Yeah, it's good to be adaptive. I'm always thinking about what keeps you kind of in the, especially with like social media, you kind of always have to be kind of progressive and kind of living in the moment, right?
Absolutely. And I certainly am never going to claim that I have the answer. What I try to do in my social media is just be real.
Yeah.
And I try to be honest with people, and I try to give my actual feeling about an article or about a picture, and just try to be a little bit of a smart ass or a little bit of, my true personality. And I think a lot of people, you can follow their social media. A lot of these artists, you find out nothing about them. It's a marketing agency. They're just telling you to buy tickets or buy a CD.
Right.
And you really don't get to know anything about the artist. They have nothing to do with it. As opposed to me, who's actually like once or twice a day sits down, gives it some thought, says, what I want the fans to find out about me, what's going on right now, is it World Cup, is it, and just kind of putting a little spin on something. I think if they follow me on social media, or they go back and look at some of the posts, they're definitely going to find out about my personality. There's no question.
Now, you had an interesting group of movies that you picked as your favorites. And we always like to, invite our guests to engage in one of our movie discussions or what have you. No, but I noticed Harrison Ford crops up in two of yours.
Yeah.
Because you got Star Wars, and I assume you're talking about, like, the original Star Wars and the way it was originally cut, probably, right?
Yeah, I love the original Star Wars. I mean, I actually like the second trilogy also. I know a lot of people had some issues with parts of it, but no, I loved all the Star Wars, and I told you, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Definitely favorites.
I guess I'll just comment briefly on Star Wars, because there's been a million conversations about it, but, the third one of the prequels, that kind of redeemed all three of them for me. What is it, Revenge of the Sith? Yeah. When we finally see, like, Anakin switch. Like, that movie kind of, I think... I mean, it had similar tones as, like, Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yeah, it kind of was great to see how he became this master villain. And, I definitely liked it the best, probably, out of those three.
My favorite Indiana is Temple of Doom.
That was definitely a short round, and that was... I think in the first one I loved the idea of it, and the snakes and all that. And he's this guy, but in terms of overall, like, the story and the acting and a little humor, the second one I think was great.
Well, I like all the voodoo mysticism, and there was a moment of danger in that one that seemed real. A lot of it was like, the first one and the third one definitely over the top, and you don't really feel like they're ever really in jeopardy because the set pieces are so massive,
Sure.
Like, there was, like... Because it started happening in, like, the late 80s, and then definitely through, like, movies in the 90s, how, like, the action got really big, but it was also kind of ludicrous, It's like movies kind of went into this totally fantastic area where, you really didn't believe that the stakes were that high for the heroes because they were just pretty much invincible,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
But you have a great movie on your list, and my friend and I, we always argue back and forth about this movie because it beat out... what did it beat out? It beat out a Martin Scorsese movie at the Oscars, because Rocky won the Oscar like the same year that Taxi Driver was up for the Oscar. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I remember it won it though, but yeah.
But I mean, it's an incredible movie about an underdog, and Stallone at the time is an underdog, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He was an unknown.
Yeah. An unknown. Nobody wanted to give him credit. The studios didn't trust him to make his own movie. I read this story on Facebook, and I don't know how accurate it is. I've never met the guy, but he's definitely one of my, like, pseudo-celebrity role models, you know what I mean? Like, I like the kind of movies he makes. I like the fact that he came from nothing, self-made, right?
Yeah.
And I just always wanted to ask him if the story about his dog was true, because I don't know if you've ever heard that story where it's like he had a dog, but he couldn't take care of it because he could barely feed himself, and he was going through like a stint of homelessness when he was trying to get, Rocky off the ground and into a studio to greenlight it or whatever. And so he gave up his dog, and then had encountered the guy that took the dog, I don't know, maybe a year or two later or something, and was able to buy the dog back.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, the story, it's well written. I don't know if it's just like an urban legend, or if it's really, really true. I'm not sure, but the other part of the story was just how he refused to compromise on his ideals of his story and his vision for the movie, which is really hard to do. And I think it's harder for musicians too. Like you were talking about how some artists, their official Twitters are just kind of robots, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about their image, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's much harder when, especially well, I guess pre-internet, really, pre-music downloads and stuff like that, pre-Napster, all that stuff, where the record companies basically borrowed your image for a certain amount of time. And something that what bands that I've met told me before that I didn't even know was that you had to essentially take out a giant loan essentially with a record company. And if you didn't get those records sold or those albums sold or those CDs or those concerts sold out, you were in debt to the record company.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, there's a really cool YouTube video I saw that explained it the best, where if you sell 1,000,000 CDs as an artist, you will label almost $500,000. And these are traditional standard fees, and they go through each fee. And it's not with anybody trying to rip you off. It's just the regular standard fees for all this different. And what most people don't realize is, sure, they'll pay for your studio time and professional musicians and everything, but it all adds up. And that's why, like, being an indie artist, at least, there's not anybody telling you what to do. There's not anybody telling you what to say on Facebook. Oh, that's not appropriate. Don't say that. They're not telling you, hey, don't try that. Why are you singing in that style for that song? That doesn't, it's not as smooth, or it's not as, you don't have this processed sound that is just not authentic. It's 100% the same sounding on every song. And you can do whatever you want. You can experiment. You can try things. And that's the advantage of going indie.
Wow. It's kind of the new way for everything, I think.
I think so, but at the end of the day, let's be honest, marketing works, and everything from YouTube to Facebook, everything is monetized. So if you look at people that, something is got 10 million views, sure, if I had a huge marketing budget, I can get things at 10 million or a million easily, but it's just, I think most people kind of are starting to understand that, but it's a little bit biased when we have these huge labels or huge...
Well, that is true. The internet only made some other people more famous that were already famous, right?
Yeah,
like, there's this whole angle. I know exactly what you're saying. I was talking to somebody about this. Like, there's a million content providers. There's a million, as you say, independent artists floating around on the internet, whether they're making YouTube videos or music videos or trying to sell, their music through SoundCloud or something. But there's still these giant corporations that can throw $1 million behind one thing while these other 1,000 people are trying to scramble to get, their hits up or get seen, really, through all the content, right?
Absolutely. I don't know if you know this or if your listeners know this, but there's two things that, again, as opposed to what I just told you, that was a very interesting fact. 33% of all songs in iTunes had less than one download last year. So if you can imagine that the artist is going to download his own song and buy it, that's crazy to think that. Wow. And then on Spotify, I heard there were like 4 million songs that didn't even get one play last year. Think about that. That's crazy.
Those are crazy numbers.
Yeah.
How did those numbers come out of iTunes? Because iTunes is notorious for, like...
This is the data that they themselves revealed.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Because they don't let a lot of things out of the bag on iTunes about people's statistics.
Yeah, this was, I don't remember, again, I'm blanking where I read it, but it was a credible source. It wasn't, maybe it was on CD Baby. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was on CD Baby. And it's definitely, even Spotify, people think Spotify is trying to change things now where they would try to at least expose people to more indie type stuff, because at the end of the day, again, if you can pay to advertise on Pandora, Apple has iAd now. If you pay to market it, you're going to get exposure. But music is such a fickle business, because if I'm trying to get someone to pay 99 cents for a download, the return on investment is crazy. It's not there. You literally will have to spend $100,000 to get. You won't go anywhere near making money. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I was, we decided to test the correlation between throwing up a podcast for free and then offering some paid content, right? In the form of a crowd-funded short film.
Sure.
Just based on like what the audience has been like and like what we've done over the last few months with the podcast to see what the interest would be. And I kind of figured it out. It's like if I make the movie for X amount, I need 10,000 downloads at 99 cents each to break even. And it's like you said, it's like how do you? It's going to be definitely a challenge if there's no marketing budget. And ultimately, I think you have to have more money on the marketing than you do in the actual production.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question. Look at the labels, what they do for radio airplay. They will routinely spend about $250,000 to $350,000, and it'll take them 12, 18 months to get a song on the radio. And that's for an average artist on a label. That's not for like Katy Perry, who, of course, when she releases a new song, it'll be out there too. You're not going to make that money back. You're not going to sell like, 1 million downloads. So it's just, there's a lot of money necessary to make the machine work. And at the end of the day, you got to tour. You're not going to make your money just on downloads.
So you have to still be an avid presence in the real world then.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not an expert to explain to you how the big boys work, but
yeah.
Touring, from what I've heard, makes them a lot of their money. To me, it's different because if I sell a couple of thousand downloads of something, that's great, because I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it to try to raise money for charity, and I paid for any of the startup and marketing, anything I do, I paid that out of my own pocket.
Yeah.
Not expecting to get any of that back, so I'm just trying to get the word out, get my music out, and really, if I can raise some money for charity, that's really what I want to do.
What kinds of charities? Should my listeners be like in tune with certain objectives or anything that you want them to take a look at?
Sure. What I've done basically, I started about 3 years ago. My dad passed away from lung cancer, so that kind of pushed me over the edge to say, you know what, I really got to give music a shot.
Yeah.
I don't want to always regret that I didn't give it a shot. So that's when I really came up with this plan and decided I was going to do it. And every song has a different charity. So the first one was called Not Where I Want to Be, which was released in January. And the charity for that one is American Cancer Society. So obviously the reason for that, when you read the lyrics and listen to the song, the double meaning is that cancer is not where anyone wants to be. So that's why I picked that charity for that song. And then each song after that, when you can listen to them for free on my website. You can see all the charities there, but there's a double meaning to each one that I kind of explain also in the music video for each one. There's a different charity for each one, and I'm going to keep doing this probably till the day I die. And I'm going to pick a different charity for each song, and I'm going to just keep going. There's no reason to stop.
No, that's what did before your dad passed away, what did he think about the music and all that stuff?
My dad was a traditional Greek dad who worked his butt off.
Yeah.
And, in the restaurant business. I did not see him that often, but I can tell you that he was the most gentle and compassionate guy I've ever met. He was not like one of these old dads, never hit me, never yelled at me. Was always very encouraging. But he worked harder than anyone I know. So he always, when I was a kid, when I was in grammar school, high school, anytime I mentioned that I wanted to start a band and anything, of course he did the fatherly thing and said, hey, you're not going to make money in that. Stay in school, basically. But as the years went by, I think he always realized that it was a passion of mine. And I obviously didn't start down this path till after he passed away, but I know that he agrees with everything I've done and the way I've done it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I keep my day job, take care of all my responsibilities, and basically I didn't drop everything, move to LA, and think that I'm going to make it no matter what. So I think I've done it very realistically where, again, it's not on anyone else's time except my own, and I think he would respect that.
So, okay. So you have more of a practical approach to it, if such a thing could exist. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like, they got to make it happen now. It's now or never. A lot of people have that attitude,
You know what? I'm sorry, I lost you there. I heard a practical approach and then I lost you.
Oh, I was saying it sounds like you somehow developed like a practical approach as a musician, whereas opposed to a lot of people that have the same kind of passion, but their approach is more kind of not necessarily radical, but it's like the now or never feeling, right? Like the urgency of everything.
And you know what? I've been there myself. I mean, I'm not 18 anymore, and I definitely understand the impatient attitude of, I was born to do this, whether it's play football, baseball, be a rock star, make a movie, and I'm in this for the long haul, and I'm not in a rush, and I am trying to be even-tempered and down to earth, because at the end of the day, 99.99% of people don't make it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to you, it's the number one thing I desire, and I am willing to do anything to do it, but I'm also realistic in that, like I said, I have obligations, I have things I have to make sure I take care of on a daily basis, and I'm not going to be unrealistic about it. And I think a lot of people are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, I can see the benefits of not being realistic about it because there is so much pressure and so much depression that comes with not achieving it. I don't think they want to measure that every day, you know?
Sure.
I mean, I've been there myself. Like, I get it almost sounds like a little bit bipolar, but it's like, if you get really bad news about something, a creative project you're really passionate about, or something you're working on, and then later that day you get some positive news. It's almost like they cancel each other out, and you're just kind of back to whatever your initial thought about the whole thing was. Kind of like, what is your approach going to be? And my thing is coming to terms with the reality of what if I've gone as far as I can go just based on how much time I have left and how much energy and time I can put into the creative projects, as opposed to, as you said, there are certain responsibilities you just have to take care of at certain stages of your life, and that's kind of where you are, And even as I say it now, it is it's coming out, and I'm thinking of it as a depressing thought, though,
Yeah, I totally get you. And I think anyone who's an artist understands exactly what you just said, because, you're sad, you're happy, you're depressed, you're elated. And at the end of the day, life has taught me that you can't get too high or too low. And it's hard because all of us are doing this. We're exposing ourselves, putting ourselves out there. And if I put a song out there and I've thought through and spent countless hours on it, someone says, hey, that sucks. That's the worst song I've ever heard. Or why did you sing it like that? There's a part of you that does, I take everything from everyone, whether it's criticism or a compliment. I try to get better every day. But it's not a fun thing to hear. And I think some people stop getting better because they think they've made it, or they just can't ever believe someone criticized them.
Yeah.
So it's hard. You make a film, you put so much thought to 10 seconds of that, and other people look at it and just judge it. And they don't understand the nuances of what you've created, why you put that intro there, why you did those two different shots. You get it, and it's hit or miss. I mean, sometimes if you had a huge marketing budget, how many songs? I think this happens to everyone. I hear a song, I'm like, wow, that's a terrible song. I don't like that. But after hearing it 100 times in a week, it grows on you. And then you're like, okay, that's a cool song. I mean, marketing works. There's no question.
Yeah, that's true. Case in point, is it Pharrell's song "Happiness" that was in the cartoon? And
yeah, Happy.
Happy, and he was nominated for an award. I don't know if it's the actual song, the beats, like if the music affects the way it enters my eardrum and it hits my auditory senses in a certain way, or if it's just the fact that it was promoted with the movie. I have two small boys, so they've watched the movie, forced me to watch the movie, right? And and it's been all over the radio, and as you said, it's been everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then it caught me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can tolerate it, and actually, it's enjoyable on some level. But it's kind of like, but we've been conditioned that way for a very long time, So it's just really interesting. It's like, if we weren't conditioned that way, how would we discover things? And it'd be like you said, like young people that have no connection to a certain music from a certain period are discovering things on their own. You know what I mean? In a new way, a fresh way to something that's been laid down. And for me, I can say, like, I went back and I started digging up things like jazz recordings that are, floating around in public domain, but from jazz artists and stuff like that from the 20s and 30s, you know what I mean? And like members of like the American Songbook or whatever, I've been looking up all this old stuff that speaks to me in a way that I can't explain about modern music,
Sure.
As much as I can say, I think it's part of the recording process. I think there's something about the raw physical elements of putting things on a 33-inch vinyl recording,
Yeah.
So, and the way the sound comes out, and how flawed it is. Like, you can hear it skipping across the record, as it was recorded, and every nick and cranny in that record before it was digitized is included in that sound, you know?
Yep.
And then plus the great music that's on it. So it's just interesting. So for me, that's my equivalent of being like what I think I mean, who knows what the mentality of a 14-year-old is, really? Because, I don't know.
Look, I would love to tell you that the 13 to 22-year-old demographic is going to appeal, is going to love my music, and I'm going to be the next One Direction, Justin Bieber, and I'm going to have 70 million Facebook likes. But the truth is, I am also trying to appeal to different demographics. So I think people, good or bad, I think people, especially in music, neglect or ignore the 25 to 55-year-old age group. And I think that's a mistake. I can tell you that when I look at my different songs, some appeal to 18 to 25-year-olds, some appeal 35 to 45, some appeal 13 different age groups. And I do think, especially some of the radio hits, I think people don't target different demographics, and they should. Why should everybody target the same genre, the same demographic for certain songs? And I do try to target different demographics. I really do.
That's interesting. So what's next for you? What are you going to be working on?
I'm still going to release one song every single month, one video every single month. Like I said, I plan on doing that forever. And I did do the Toronto Music Festival a couple months ago. I'm working on some charity concert type stuff. Basically, I will perform for free wherever people want me to, if it's a good charitable cause. And I'm just trying to get the word out there. Hopefully my fan base grows, my email list is growing, and hopefully I'll be able to tour the world and share my music with everyone. That's my goal. Like I said before, as much money as I can raise for charity, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, it's a good ambition. It's a good goal. It sounds like you're making good strides. The other thing you should put in the back of your mind, though, is like eventually, people will know it's you at some point, right? Like locally, they'll know that you're out there.
Yeah, my objective, I guess, as I grow, when I get to a certain point where I'm actually making some money from music and I'm actually able to donate, some significant money to charities, at some point I do plan on sharing my real name with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think when they see what I do for, what's my profession, I think they'll understand why I'm doing the charity thing and that I'm real.
No, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming on the show and talking to us about everything. And I'll play some of your songs on this episode. I'll probably get connected to you through Twitter, and I haven't done that yet, but I will. And as soon as this episode is ready or whatever, I'll kick it over to you in email so you have the links and all that.
Yeah, that's perfect. And anything you need, let me know. I'll shoot you an email each month with the new song you can listen to, and anything you need. If you need any more time with me, just let me know. I'd be happy to anytime.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. I think you got